Invoking the slippery slope argument against gay rights. A right-wing favourite, of course. Rightoids, from Nazis to typical conservatives, absolutely love nothing more than employing the slippery slope argument against gay rights. Some common examples include saying that we will soon get a paedophile rights movement attached to LGBT advocacy. Claims that gay marriage will lead to people marrying animals or objects can similarly be found. All manner of stupid arguments about the horrifying fictitious consequences of accepting people who cause society no harm. The slippery slope is of course the most basic of fear-mongering arguments. We cannot do this good thing because this very small bad thing will somehow magically happen if we do the good thing. It is simply a desperate attempt at mobilizing idiots and stirring up some kind of ridiculous moral panic. Before we actually attack the argument, we should note that it is fear-mongering propaganda. So now to address the actual validity of the slippery slope against gay rights and its many forms. We ought to distinguish between the two kinds of slippery slope: the valid slippery slope argument and the invalid slippery slope argument. Spoiler alert, the arguments against gay rights are in the latter category. A valid slippery slope would point to the logical conclusion of a particular idea. An example of this would be if you said that trans women are not women because they cannot reproduce. Then you would also have to accept that any cis woman who cannot reproduce is not a woman. This would be you logically following a motivating idea to a range of consistent conclusions. This could be viewed as a valid use of the slippery slope, as the slippery slope actually points to the logical conclusion of a particular idea. Obviously, that example was someone making a terrible argument and then applying it consistently, but you get what I mean. Now for an example of an invalid slippery slope. Saying that the push for gay rights will eventually lead to a push for pedophilia is an invalid use of this argument. It is invalid because the legalization and acceptance of pedophilia is not a logical conclusion of gay rights. People push gay rights because gay people are just normal people who don't harm anyone and want to be allowed to live freely as everyone else can. People push gay rights because they believe in liberty concerning relationships, so long as these relationships are between consenting adults and cause no harm to anyone. The logical conclusion of this is not the legalization of pedophilia, which happens to be highly immoral, as it does not involve consent and sees the oppression and exploitation of children. There is no logical conclusion being followed here. The slippery slope argument is worthless and irrational fear-mongering in situations like this. It is as invalid as the slippery slope can get, just as all of the slippery slope arguments used against gay rights are. It is blatant fear-mongering, trying desperately to create a moral panic which can be weaponized against gay rights. It assumes that everyone is highly unintelligent and will surrender rationality to a primitive reflex related to fear of some magical consequences happening after we do good things and causing us harm. The slippery slope argument used against gay rights is invalid and should be crushed every time it is brought up. It is complete garbage, and it should not be taken seriously.